It's the Winning Ticket Podcast, where victory is guaranteed. With
Mikey,
Zach, Joe, and your host, Dean.
Hey, everyone. You are listening to the Winning Ticket Podcast, which means that you are going to be a winner this week because victory is guaranteed, according to John, because that is our tagline. But anyway, I am joined by the tag team champions, Joe and Mikey. You guys know them from many episodes. Guys, welcome back to the XFL portion of the podcast. Mikey making his debut on XFL. How's it going, guys?
Going fantastic,
Week 3,
man.
baby. Mikey, cue up Edge's theme song. Go, hit it.
I can't do that.
So,
all right, never mind. We had
how.
a theme song playing and everything, Dean. Forget it, man. But we're happy to be here.
It's funny. We're talking XFL. I mean, you'd think that Vince would give us the rights to all the entrance themes, but I'm not so sure about all that. But yeah. So, guys, let's just get right into it. But before we do, I just want to mention we have an XFL partner that has actually been really great, and this has helped me with my research. As you guys know, I'm a big data guy, so research is very important, and that's actually one of my keys this week. I'll get to that in a little bit. But if you are hearing my voice right now, I want you to go to YouTube. I want you to check out the show called In the Red Zone with Mike and Sean. Very good stuff. They have a bunch of videos, college, NFL, and specifically XFL. So I definitely want you guys to check that out. Joe, have you had a chance to use this great resource in your research?
Definitely. I spoke with Mike a couple days ago. I checked them out on YouTube just as a consumer, and I love the content, so I shot something over to him. And it looks like we're going to be partnering with them for the XFL. Just a little cross-promotion. We both liked each other's stuff, so we figured we might as well give the people what they want. And I'm also very excited for college football season because they had a lot of conference breakdowns. And, I don't want to spoil everything. If that sounds like something you're into, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're definitely into gambling, you got to go check them out, especially when it comes college football time. Hopefully we can get something going in during that time. But for now, it's the XFL, and we are all cylinders firing, and we are so ready to go with them, and we're really excited.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I'm so ready for the rest of the season. Guys, you may know or may not know, I've mentioned it either on this show or the other show, the Rated podcast, which you guys heard our Oscar preview. We did a little bit of a swap cast. So I'm pulling double duty. I'm just talking into a microphone, sitting in my back room like a disheveled maniac. But I've actually been traveling. So last week, I didn't really get a chance to watch the XFL games live. I did, however, watch the coaches film, which is something that's really important. So, guys, do you have any broad takeaways so far 2 weeks into the XFL? Anything that you want to touch on right now before we get into the slate of games for this week?
Mikey, why don't you go ahead, man? Give me something that you took away from week 2.
I've just got one thing, and that is that Matt McGloin is a giant baby.
Yeah, dude.
We all saw his complete meltdown on national TV at halftime, saying the entire game plan needs to change, and then it did because he was benched in the second half.
Yeah,
so, it didn't really spark their offense in that game, but
someone needs
something to look out for in the games this week.
Absolutely. Someone needs to tell Matt McGloin that he's not good enough to start demanding things on live TV. And that was something that was kind of my biggest takeaway from week 1. And then, of course, when I was watching back week 2 as well. It's very, very cool that the on-field reporters go directly to the people in a moment of frustration and a high emotional game like football is. So that was actually great that we got that gem. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit more gems going forward. Joe, I'm just going to kind of box you out right now. I'm going to tell you my biggest takeaway from the first 2 weeks of the XFL season.
Go for it.
Maybe
box
I'm
me.
teasing one of my plays later, but I'm throwing the Tampa Bay Vipers in the garbage can. They are really, really bad offensively, and I actually, without giving up the entire load, did you know that they actually outgained both of their opponents and still lost? Week 1 they lost by 20. Last week they lost by 8. So that's really hard to do. If you outgain someone in yardage, but you don't beat them in score. I mean, in the NFL, Joe, off the top of your head, how often does that happen? Like maybe 10%?
That's extremely rare. Yeah, that's so rare.
So I'm going to have more on that in a little bit. But guys, just overall, and it sounds so silly to say, but we've all got kind of burned on this, I think, a little bit. But honestly, the best betting tip that I could possibly give you with XFL, or even if you start to kind of wander to the weirder things that you don't really have a good grasp on, I'm going to say you want to know all the information that you need moving forward. And one thing that I got burned on, like I said, I've been jet flying, limousine riding, all that. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I couldn't find a good injury report, and I couldn't really keep up with that. And when I got to my hotel room in Dallas, it was beautiful, but there was Matt McGloin getting crushed, like left, right, and center. And then they're like, yeah, the Guardians are missing 3 offensive linemen. 3 offensive linemen? I wish I knew about that. So it's definitely something that I want to just circle back to and say, I would say definitely go to Twitter, try to find some injuries. Even search on Twitter, like these guys' names, like someone might be tweeting about that. There's not a lot of beat writers right now, but before placing bets, you want to make sure that you have all the information that you need, specifically injuries.
Yeah, definitely. DFS is also huge for that. I remember I used DraftKings this past week just to kind of check the Josh Johnson situation, and because that kind of goes into one thing I did here, because there's only 8 teams. I ran through some power rankings, and that was super easy. But because, like I said, there's only 8 teams, but that the injuries are kind of a huge factor into it. So I really had to run through DraftKings and FanDuel and just try to, like you said, compile all the info to make my power rankings here. By the way, I do have the Vipers as the 8th best team in the league, aka the worst team in the league, sitting at 0-2.
And over the years, saying stuff like that.
Yeah, I never will. I've already given up. I butcher that kind of stuff. We got the right info. I just say it all weird. But look, if you want to start with Guardians at Battlehawks first, I feel like we accidentally started this way anyway, because Matt McGloin is the bane of our existence right now.
We definitely did. And just really quick, Joe, you had mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, and that is the fact that there's only 8 teams and there's only been 8 games. So getting averages was actually really easy. So, guys, I just want to read off to you. Week 1, the scoring average. So I'm going to look totals really quick because a little bit of a spoiler alert. My 2 best bets are actually going to be total plays. Week 1, the totals were an average of 39 with 2 games going over 50. Week 2, the scoring average of all games were 37 with 1 game going over 50. And, of course, in this data set, the most common total score, 26, happened 3 times, 27 once, 43 once. So that goes to say that half of the game, or more than half of the games, have gone 43 or lower, which is actually pretty interesting. So that's something to keep in mind as you go through this week of games. So, of course, going to read you the Guardians. The Guardians are catching 9.5 points. The total is 40.5. St. Louis Battlehawks are one of those teams that they are actually 2-0 against the spread. So that's something to keep in mind. 9.5 is a pretty big one. Game total 40.5. Joe, Mikey, what do you guys like in this one?
Mikey, you can take this one off of that. I think we have the same play here. I'll just add if you leave anything for me.
Yeah, I think we actually both like the Battlehawks in this matchup for a couple of reasons. First off, it looks like they have the second best offense in the entire league, next to the Roughnecks from Houston, which we'll get into later. But also the fact that this is the first professional football game being played in St. Louis since 2015 when the Rams left. So I could definitely see some extra crowd noise. Everybody's getting jacked up for football again in St. Louis. Might give a few extra points for home field advantage here. Rather than the usual 3. I think the place is the Edward Jones Dome. Well, it used to be called the Edward Jones Dome. I don't know what it's called now. Maybe it's called the house that Zach Stacy built. But they're looking to get around 30,000 people here, which is above average for an XFL game like this.
Yeah,
I'm a little scared of the 9.5, but which is crazy for an XFL game. It's a pretty big stadium, so. I'm scared of. I don't like laying the big points usually, but I mean 9.5 against the Guardians, who could not score against the Defenders, and they have inner turmoil already. It's not even week 3 yet in the XFL season, so I just don't see how they're going to score enough to cover that 9.5.
Definitely, and when you look at the Battlehawks secondary, it actually looks legit. They held Walker to only 175 yards and 3 deep passes. So a team that is going to be lighting it up, as we'll see. I have the Roughnecks actually the number one team in the league, as you do, Mikey, and I'm sure Dean probably does as well. They had 3 deep passes compared to 11 in week 1. So the Battlehawks can kind of, they could stop the big play. And if the Guardians are as slow as I've ever seen in offense. So if they can't stretch the field at all, I mean, getting 2 yards every play is just not going to do it. McGloin passed for like 45 yards. Their offense is atrocious and slow. And now Jordan Ta'amu is going to be going up against that Guardians D, and that might scare you. Oh no, the Guardians have a really good D. Let's kind of break that down. They had the number 1 pressure rate because the Vipers and the defenders kind of stink at protecting the quarterback. So that's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You could convince me that maybe the Vipers and the defenders' offensive line stink and they couldn't protect them, or you can just say the Guardians really get after the quarterback. Regardless, Ta'amu is a really good mobile, scrambly kind of dude. So you can pressure him all you want. He's going to just find a little hole every now and again. It might even be better for Ta'amu. So, I mean, with that being said, I'm really glad, and I'll finish up my point here. I'm really glad you mentioned the home field advantage, because if you think that there's 3 points for home field advantage in the NFL or college is it's obviously be different, but let's just take 3 points here for the XFL, add 1 because the travel is a little more strenuous because it's not first class flying. Then add another 1 because it's a dome in the first football game that's going to be played in St. Louis in, a million years? I mean, we could be looking at a 4.5, 5-point home field advantage. And then when you take that away from the 9.5, they're saying that the Battlehawks are just 4, 5, maybe 6 points, if you want to take that other extra crap out of the equation, better than the Guardians. I'm sorry, that's just too small. I have the Battlehawks second in my power rankings, and I have the Guardians 5. Which is up for debate. If the Guardians lose, they might drop all the way to 7, which I think they will. So, yeah, I'm with you. I do not like laying 9.5, but I really like the Battlehawks in this situation here.
Yeah, definitely. And that was one of my, like I said, I have 2 best bets that are both totals. But the other 2 games I actually did take sides. And this is my side lean. I got St. Louis minus 9.5 as well, despite wearing this fresh new Guardians hat. It looks awesome. But anyway, Jordan Ta'amu, 602 total yards on the season. Rumor has it that a lot of NFL teams are now looking into these XFL contracts and trying to figure out if there's any loopholes through that. I mean, Vince McMahon has $1 billion, so I would suspect that the contracts are pretty ironclad, but definitely going to be something to follow. If Jordan Ta'amu becomes like the league MVP or anything like that, we might be hearing his name around training camp in August for the NFL. I heard specifically that the Titans were kind of looking to get him on as like a practice squad guy. He's kind of doing everything right now. You guys kind of knocked it out of the park with the home field. And honestly, Joe, you were saying, 4.5, 5 points for a home field for St. Louis. That's not crazy. The home teams in the XFL in this 8-game season so far, 6-2 straight up and 6-2 against the spread. One of those against the spread wins and straight up wins was St. Louis at Dallas. Of course, they were missing Landry Jones in that game, but still, it counts. So definitely the home field. Honestly, I would almost stand to reason that the books are over or undervaluing this home field advantage, especially hearing that the stadium is selling out 33,000 seats. It's a stadium that is rocking. They used to have the greatest show on turf. It's built for speed. Jordan Ta'amu is a great scrambler. He's been doing it with the legs in the pocket. He's doing just enough, and he's kind of really developing as one of the league's kind of best stories right now, which is really cool. Of course, the Guardians, like we all said it, they're kind of imploding offensively. Their defense is doing just enough. I mean, they gave up the 27 points, but at the same time, they played against Cardell Jones. They did all right, and they were on the field for most of the game. So that was something that you really don't want to see. Yes, McGloin was a crybaby. He looked bad. Of course, he wasn't a man of character the way that he handled all the situation. But like I said off the top, the offensive lineman injuries was one that I'll kind of give him a little bit of a pass. And also, here is something that I got really nervous about going into the season, and that is, there was a lot of unknowns going into the season, but we did know Kevin Gilbride is the coach. And as a play caller, he just straight up does not do it for me. So I saw a lot of give-up plays. Of course, it's not like McGloin or the backup could have thrown them back into it. But then again, there was a lot of shotgun draws for my liking, especially because even though they were getting killed pretty much momentum-wise, they were only down like 9 points, which is one possession in this league. So a lot. So I saw the New York kind of waving the white flag, which was pretty concerning to me. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond this week. But, yeah, I'm all over St. Louis minus 9.5.
Yeah, you nailed this one, dude. I think we totally wrapped this game up. If you were to take Guardians plus 9.5 and you win, congrats to you for winning. But I just think you're on the wrong side here. I think that you just didn't see enough. Then you couldn't have watched these games.
I would almost stand to reason. And Joe, of course, we had mentioned on the last episode our Slack channel. I don't know if you saw on Saturday morning I put in the Red Wings because they were plus like 390, which is the highest money line that I saw this season. And with a league that has parity, now of course, the XFL that remains to be seen. But just having the Guardians at plus 310, I mean, in order to cover the spread, you would have to stand to reason that something happened in St. Louis where they're just straight up not performing the way that we all expect. So at that point, I would almost say don't even bother taking the 9.5. Take the plus 310 and put a little bit on it because it's basically what I'm saying is it's a fool's bet. I mean, the Red Wings lost that game 5-1, but at the same time, it's enticing for some. I could see that. I don't see it being enticing with the points. And of course, this isn't that most sports books won't let you tease or add points or buy points or anything like that. These are all kind of special right now. So definitely I would say play St. Louis or stay off. Now, of course, this 40.5 is the lowest total on the board this week. Of course, I would lean anything but the only thing that I would lean would be the under, but the fact that it is the lowest, I think that there's more value to be had on the board. So with that being said, I think I'm going to transition into the other game that I have as my side lean, and I believe we have additional audio from Zach. So let's kick to that really quick.
Great. Let's hear it, man. Let's do it.
Hello, guys. This is Zach Nasiolo of the Winning Ticket podcast here with your XFL Week 3 Play of the Week. So obviously you saw last week the trend of the unders continued. Unfortunately, there's nothing posted right now. It is Tuesday night, so I don't expect those numbers probably to be posted around Friday, and I truly think the books will adjust where you're going to see even lower numbers than what we've seen previously. But this week, my play of the week is going to be the LA Wildcats hosting the DC Defenders in LA. I am taking the points. Currently, the Wildcats are 8.5-point home underdogs. You might think, why, Zach? DC Defenders have been rolling. They blew out Seattle week 1. They had a dominant performance at home, shutting out the Guardians, but I truly believe that game was more of a Guardians complete meltdown. McGloin was not having any of it. He missed a couple wide open throws. He had a couple of big key drops by his wide receivers. The Wildcats, you saw, put a little bit more fight in their matchup versus the Renegades, and you saw Landry Jones perform pretty decently, completing 70% of his passes for 305 yards and a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Josh Johnson was only 53% for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, though. The biggest factor here is I really don't think defense going to play a part of it. I don't expect the DC defense to pick up the slack like they did last week against the Guardians. Plus, it's going to be their first trip going across country for their first road game. DC has not played on the road yet. They're going to LA. LA surprisingly had a pretty good fan base. It was loud. The crowd was a factor despite the loss. Nelson Spruce, actually the leading receiver for not only the LA Wildcats, but the entire XFL, leads the league currently with 17 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So look at him to be an X factor in the offense. Josh Johnson got the first game under his belt. He got the nerves out the way, and now at home he's basically a touchdown underdog. I see this being a lot closer game than anticipated. Though Cardell Jones has been playing pretty good, I see the Wildcats coming out and covering in this one, and I think they actually have a chance to win outright. So with that being said, take the 8.5, and I would actually possibly even wait later on in the week. I feel like DC right now is a early favorite to win the whole thing along with the Defenders. So go ahead and take the Wildcats plus 8.5 and look for that number to even go up. If you get it at 9.5, that's literally an entire score with the conversion of a 3-point extra point. So Wildcats plus 8.5.
All right, so thanks, Zach.
Sorry, having me jump in.
Of course, you guys know this voice from the regular episodes. That, of course, is Zach. He told you that. But, guys, LA plus 8.5. I saw some have 9.5, or not 9.5. I saw some places 9. Right now, what I'm looking at on FanDuel is LA +8. Joe, Mikey, what do you guys got on this one?
Definitely, Zach killed it as usual. I literally love Zach. So, two quick things, because Zach didn't leave anything for me. I mean, he convinced me, and I was already on it. So I'm a huge Defenders fader. They've had 2 home games, and they've played crap offenses, and they have had 3 defensive or special teams touchdowns in 2 games. If you take those away and you watch the game, they have a really hard time punching it in, especially from the red zone. So you got to think the Defenders are overrated. I have them 3rd in my power rankings, and they're 2-0. So that looks weird, but think Cowboys in week 3 of the NFL season. It's literally the exact same thing, where everyone's putting up so many numbers, and you think all these things and blah, blah, blah. But then by the end of the season, you're like, wow, I guess they really weren't that good because they finally played some of the best teams in the country. So another reason why I'm on the Wildcats is that Josh Johnson looked better in the second half, and he's also getting a couple of pieces back in the wide receiver realm. Now, this is not Julio Jones and Jerry Rice running routes, but they're going to help. They're people that he's practiced with a little bit before, so I think that can give them a boost as well. There's no reason why you should fade the Wildcats +8.5 at home.
Yeah, absolutely. You killed it. Zach killed it. Mikey, do you want to pick at the bones too?
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing in this game is the travel factor. I mean, the Defenders are going from DC all the way to LA, and like you said with the Guardians game, it's not like they're flying first class on their team plane like you would be in the NFL. It's they're going to have to fly, I assume, commercial. It's going to be a tough journey, tough 6-hour flight over to LA. Not sleeping in your own bed, staying in the hotel. Then you got to go play against a good, maybe better than what they've shown so far, Wildcats team with, like you said, Josh Johnson getting more reps after being out week 1. But yeah, I'm definitely on the Wildcats on this one as well.
Absolutely. And guys, you left no meat on the bones for me. Like I said, I have LA. I'm looking at +8 right now. It's the same thing I always circled. I actually circled LA before the season started and was like, they have Josh Johnson. I'm a simple man. He proved that he's pretty good. So I'll just kind of stick with that. Of course, this team went through a little bit of turmoil. They fired their defense coordinator after the first game. I think that they're still kind of a work in progress. DC, I totally want to get in front of that. I might just wait. Hopefully the public doesn't follow us on this one so that I can maybe get a nice fat 9.5 to 10 maybe come Saturday. So that's definitely something that I have circled. Of course, that's one of my side leans. But on to my best bet that is not a lean, and that it will be the under in the Tampa Bay Vipers Houston Roughnecks game. Now, Joe had said that it's his number 1 team in the power rankings, which, you get no disagreement from me. But here's what I'm going to say, and of course, I'm a numbers guy. I'm more analytical. I read you off at the top of the episode that the average score is 38. So in the NFL, the average score is 40, 48, 47.5 is usually where, if the books don't know, they just set it at 47.5 and let the public do their thing. So why are these totals not 38? The lowest total is 40.5. The highest total is actually this game, 45.5. Now, there's a reason why I'm doing this. Tampa Bay, they have only scored 6 offensive points all year. Now, they had, of course, a defensive touchdown last week. They scored 9. That's in the single digits. They only scored 3 against the Guardians, who kind of got a little bit exposed last week against an actual good team. So even if Houston absolutely kills them, I really don't think that Tampa Bay is going to really be scoring all that much. Even if Tampa Bay wins, do you see any other game script aside from them just playing great, stellar defense, holding Houston out of the end zone more often than not, which we already established probably won't happen? Now, Houston, I'm actually going to take a look into them a little bit. They actually got outgained 390 to 238 last week. Ew. They got crushed. They should have lost that game, really. And this offensive onslaught, this juggernaut, if you actually deep dig into the stats a little bit, it's maybe not as bright as what people think. I mean, it's kind of like being the valedictorian in the short bus. It's like, who cares? The sample size really isn't that much. And I said that as least offensive as I possibly could. But guys, I got another great stat that really jumped out at us, right? So the way that, and of course I have a ton of thoughts about this, and I'll let you talk in a minute, but I have that nice deep base.
Dude, go for it.
So I'm just going to keep on powering through. But guys, the league average punts per game in the XFL, 8. So that is 8 field flips. And whereas we don't see nearly as much as that in the NFL, mainly because the kickers are better. I mean, if you're on the 35-yard line, the 30-yard line, you're the Chiefs, you could throw a Harrison Butker for a 58-yarder. The XFL kicking hasn't been that good. There have been some gimmies that have been missed. So I think that these coaches, rather than going for it on 4th down, they would be so much more comfortable just punting away and trying to flip field. So I'm getting 8 field flips. That's really good for an under. And then also, I already mentioned the Tampa Bay. I threw them completely in the dumpster. They are trotting out 3 different quarterbacks. They don't even have consistency on the plays that they like to run. They do like to run the ball. They've actually had over 100 rushing yards as a team their last 2 games, despite losing by 20 and then by 8. So Tampa Bay runs the ball. Yes, Houston throws the ball. But at the same time, I think that there's really no conceivable way that the over is achieved, because that would require Tampa Bay to score a little bit. So do you guys have any likes, any leans? Did anything that I say make any sense?
Yeah, Mikey, let me grab this one real quick. I came into this podcast with 2, maybe 3 likes, and you definitely convinced me on the under here. I don't know why I just leaned that one. I didn't look at it at first. You're totally right. The Vipers, I don't think it's an overreaction to say that they can't score. They run the ball too much. The clock keeps running. The clock keeps running on incomplete passes as well. There's no way that this game goes over. I have to upgrade that to a like. And then another thing on the side, the Roughnecks are the number 1 power rankings team. I would say if you polled 80% of people who have watched the XFL, it's them or honestly, people would probably say the Defenders, but we already know I disagree there. But regardless, number 1, Roughnecks, and then number 8 is the Vipers. So how on earth are the Roughnecks laying 6 on the road at the Vipers while the Defenders are laying 8.5, 8 at LA? When, I mean, at the end of the season, are the Defenders really that much different than the Wildcats? The Wildcats have just kind of ran into some pretty, maybe not decent teams, but I don't know, 3 versus 6 compared to 1 versus 8, and I'm getting a better number. I have to lean Roughnecks here, and I almost like it just because of the fact that the Vipers can't score. Mikey, what say you?
Yeah, I agree. I'm leaning towards the Roughnecks here. PJ Walker, that's his name, right? PJ Walker?
Yeah.
It's tough learning all these guys' names for the second time, because you learn them when they're coming into the NFL, and now you have to learn them again.
Right.
But yeah, he seems to, like, from all the games that I've watched, it seems like he's the best quarterback in the league. They run the best offense in the league. They have a few former NFL receivers as well on their team. So I like their offensive output, and then especially with the Vipers just not being able to punch the ball in, like you mentioned with Aaron Murray being hurt, and then they, instead of going to their backup quarterback in Flowers, who is really electric and can run the ball kind of like a Lamar Jackson type, they went to their 3rd quarterback, whose name is Cornelius something. So, I mean, he looked horrible, just like Aaron Murray looked horrible in the first week. So, yeah, I don't know how you can trust their offensive production in this game compared to the Roughnecks, who have looked almost elite on offense.
Yeah. And
I got to take this game as soon as possible.
Oh, definitely. And you know what? The reason why I was kind of left off the side is because I think that there's a little bit of public perception is that, you know, Houston, yeah, they're great. But if you really look into the numbers, that really scares me that last week they got so outgained and they still were able to win by 4. I mean, I guess kudos on them, but I mean, they gave up 24 to St. Louis, who, you know, the books just haven't gotten right. But at the same time, I think that Tampa Bay is completely broken. Yes, Houston should win. And honestly, I think I might end up getting Houston -6 in my ledger, but I feel so much more comfortable about this under, mainly because we're 7.5 points to the good. I mean, why haven't the sportsbooks adjusted? And I think it's pretty much because of where they started. They started week 1 with every single game total being at 50.5 because that was their estimated average points per game. And it turns out that number, and granted 8 games is a small sample size, but it's 100% of all the XFL games that have ever been played. So it's kind of a catch-22. I'm going to definitely stay on the under with a lean to the Houston -6. Guys, I have another quick under really quick, but before I do you guys have any plays on Dallas versus Seattle?
This is probably my one pass. I would lean Renegades, but it's only because of Landry Jones is probably going to be getting a little bit better. And the only reason why I'm not going to play it is I don't know what to make of the Dragons at home. Pretty good home field. What are the Renegades going to be like on the road? There's a lot of question marks. I don't need to touch this one. I might attack a total because we've been like whatever it is, like 4-0 or 4-1 on totals this year. So I might do that with you guys, but I think I'm going to pass aside.
Oh, definitely. And without further ado, I mean, I do have a play on the under of 43.5. Like I said, all the reasons as the other one, except for the fact that Seattle actually, they also can't throw the ball. They kind of just run the ball on every single play. And of course, Dallas, we were all expecting Landry Jones to be this great quarterback, but he ended up kind of getting off to a rocky start. His stat line looks better than the way that he actually played if you watch the coach's film. He was 70% of his passes, completion percentage, also threw for 300 yards. He was the first XFL quarterback to do that. So just something to think about. I really see this being the same exact handicap that I gave for Tampa Bay versus Houston, except for I feel stronger about Tampa Bay being horrible than I do about Seattle. And also, Dallas wasn't really anything special to write home about. They only put up 25 points. Joe, you kind of said something that kind of made me think about it just slightly, is the fact that Landry Jones will be getting better. But that's definitely going to be my official play. So just to go really quickly through it, my two best bets are going to be both unders. I got Houston, Tampa Bay under 45.5. And then I have Dallas at Seattle under 43.5. And Joe, honestly, last weekend we really knocked that out of the park. They played at the Seahawks Stadium. They had a bunch of former Seahawks there, including their former quarterback and I believe former coach, Jim Zorn, who of course is the coach of the Dragons. They also had Steve Largent, Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Seahawks, lighting their torch to kind of get the crowd going. The crowd noise wasn't as much as a Seahawks game, obviously, but it was a very slow, grinded out type of game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Dallas kind of getting into that as well with Cameron Artis-Payne, who had 99 yards last week, and also Lance Dunbar. They have some pretty good runners. Yes, they have Landry Jones, but at the same time, even if they start scoring, I really don't think that Seattle has the horses to put up the same output in order to get to the over. So, guys, do you want to recap what your best bets, what your likes were?
Yeah, definitely, Mikey. Go first, brother.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I'm definitely I like best bet is the Renegades, the Battlehawks from St. Louis, minus 9.5 at home against the Guardians, and then also like the Wildcats getting 8.5 points at home. These will also be in our Slack channel, like you guys mentioned last week. We'll make sure to post all of our best bets and things like that, and just some other things to watch, in case we're leaning something or like waiting for the line to get to a certain number. So make sure you guys keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to mention that. So all of my likes and best bets are literally exactly what you guys said. I don't think I have anything that you guys haven't mentioned. You got to like the Wildcats. Got to like the Battlehawks. I can understand if you don't like laying that 9.5. I'm going to go with a like officially on the Roughnecks. And how can I go against Dean with his totals? I mean, it's just, what a beautiful man and what a beautiful mind. But anyway, I wanted to also touch on, I'm not going to give any DFS picks here, but we have been making a couple lineups, and we will be posting those in our Slack channel. For those who missed the Slack channel update last week, you get unlimited access to every esports gambling pick that we have. All of the experts are going to be pouring all their mental genius moments into a sports-specific style thread. So we have an XFL channel where you can actually go and just filter all the XFL news. It's only $20 a month. A couple people have taken advantage of that already, and we are super, super excited about that. And also, before I kick it over to you, Dean, I want to make sure that we remind the folks about In the Red Zone. Sean and Mike are awesome. They have been fantastic so far in our dialogues with them. There's some really good stuff. Definitely check out their XFL previews. We loved it. And eventually when it becomes college football season, they're going to be probably my first stop when it comes to any game breakdown or any conference breakdown. So definitely check those guys out. And remember about our Slack channel, because we're going to be updating with some DFS picks as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely something that we're going to kind of mention on each episode here on out. So if you're a longtime listener and you want more information about that, you could always follow us on Twitter at WinningTIXPod. It's actually on all of our phones. And I mean all of our phones, everyone's voice that you've heard on this episode. So we all get these push notifications. It's funny. Sometimes I look at my phone and there's like a whole string of DMs, and I know that Joe's having a conversation with a couple parties from our Twitter. So it's the best way to really reach us. For more information about the Slack channel, and of course, first month's free. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. I'm over 60% in over 100 plays in college basketball. And of course, we're going to be releasing some college basketball episodes, more specifically for the bracket, which Joe, Mikey, and I did last year, where we were pretty much right on. I re-listened to that the other day. But guys, before we wrap up, I just want to throw something out of a cannon here. Now, Joe, you said that St. Louis is your third team in power rankings, or did I get that completely wrong?
St. Louis is number 2. The Defenders are number 3.
All right, so I will proposition you with this one. Now, of course, a winning ticket strategy is that we don't like to be tied up in futures, but right now, St. Louis Battlehawks are plus 1,000 to win it all. They are actually the third worst odds. They're right there with Seattle and LA. So there's definitely value there at plus 1,000. Of course, I'm just going to rattle them off. DC's plus 200, Houston plus 250, Dallas plus 600, Tampa Bay, who we both have as dead last, plus 800, and then the Guardians and Battlehawks have the same exact odds. Now, guys, I don't know if I'm really going to take this right now because, like I said, I really hate having money tied up. I mean, I took action on the Wilder Fury fight like a month ago, and I just see those 2 units sitting in my bet slip. Like, I'm so mad I did that. I kind of want those right now, but I'll get them.
Okay, though, because
night.
Wilder's going to win, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll get them after
At least
Wilder
we got that one.
does what he has to do. But at the same time, I mean, this one is really calling to me that I might have to put a little bit of something on that. It's plus 1,000. I mean, I think that's a fantastic value. Like I said, Jordan Tamu is definite MVP candidate, and then that's definitely one of my best value plays that's on the board right now. If you are looking more in the futures market.
Dude, totally. I mean, what makes no sense to me is the Battlehawks are 9.5-point favorites against the Guardians, but they're the same odds to win it all. So that's proof that the sportsbooks are just nerds and they don't actually watch the games. Like, what are you doing?
And that's exactly right. And that's why you, listener, listen to us, because we find the sports books with their pants down. We show you, hey, this was a mistake. They shouldn't have that like that. And honestly, in my opinion, like I've just been, kind of ranting and raving about for the last half hour, is that the totals are all off. So I'm going to make my money again, as well as Joe and Mikey. So of course, like we always preach, you could find us on Twitter at WinningTixPod. You can find us on Instagram at WinningTicketPod. And then you could also find Joe and Mikey by DMing those or DM those, and then I'll tell them. So, guys, do you have anything to say to the people? Do you have any well wishes?
I wish everybody well, except for Mikey. I don't want him well. And
I'll be all right.
Thanks to Zach, too.
Yeah, great audio from Zach, and of course, great stuff. You guys definitely should check out In the Red Zone. I have the link in the bio. So until next time, yeah.